What is going on, you guys? Today I have a brand new project that I'm working on. It's a 2010 Toyota Camry 2.5 liter engine, and it's got a bad AC compressor, so I'm gonna go ahead get that thing swapped out. As you can see, there's just enough room if you take out the cooling fans. So the first thing I'm going to start with is this air duct in the front, 2 bolts, and it comes right out. And while I'm doing that, I do want to mention that the refrigerant has already been evacuated from this AC system. So if you're doing this on your own, make sure the system is empty. You don't want to open up those AC lines with the refrigerant under pressure. Alright, I'm going to move on and disconnect this wire harness from the fan shroud. It's clipped into place. Just use a flathead screwdriver to pop it open. There are, I think, 3 or 4 places where you have to unclip it. After the wire harness has been unclipped, there are 2 electrical plugs going to the fans themselves. Press the center tab here and pull it out. On the other connector over here, you'll have to use a small flathead screwdriver, press in the center, and then pull the connector out. After I have everything disconnected, I'm going to go ahead and set that to the side and move on to the actual plastic fans shroud assembly. It's clipped into place in 3 spots. I'm going to go ahead and press the 2 plastic tabs together, and then it just pops right out. Moving on to the actual coolant hose, you can see there's a plastic, I don't know what you call this thing, clip that's holding that thing in place. Go ahead and move the hose out of the way. So in order to remove the fan shroud assembly, you have to disconnect this top coolant hose. Before you do that, remember some coolant is going to come out of there, so I just grabbed a bottle, cut the top half off, and I'm going to go ahead and hold it down as I slowly disconnect the coolant hose. I'm going to go ahead and wait till the whole bottle is full and then plug the hose back in. And then I'll just do the same thing till there's no coolant left over. Alright, there it is. I'm going to go ahead and set that coolant hose out of the way. And finally I'll be able to lift up the fan shroud assembly. It does take a little bit finagling to get it out. You'll have to move it to the right and then rotate the right half upwards. I know on video it probably looks real super easy, but it is a pain in the butt. So do be careful when you take this out. Try not to bend any of the radiator fins. Awesome, so I got that out of the way. As you can see, there's plenty of room now to work on the AC compressor. The first thing I'm going to do is disconnect these AC lines. They are, I believe, 10mm bolts. So whenever I disconnect any of the AC lines, I always like to wrap them around in some kind of plastic or some other covering just to protect them from debris, moisture, and anything else that might creep in there. Alrighty, so there's one more bolt to take out that holds the wire harness in place. Again, it's a 10mm bolt. And then there's a black connector that you'll have to disconnect by pressing the center tab. Awesome, so we're almost there. The last thing we need to do is to remove this AC belt. Go ahead and grab a 13mm wrench and then rotate the tensioner clockwise, and then you'll be able to take out the belt. So the AC compressor itself is held in place with 2 bolts and 2 nuts. The bolts, I believe, are 12mm in size, and same goes for the nuts. You can go ahead and remove all 4 and the compressor will stay in place. And once all 4 have been removed, I'm just going to go ahead and pull the compressor forward and lift it up and out of the engine bay. I was actually surprised myself how easy that was. Here it is, the new compressor. It is a Denso brand. I think this is the OEM for this particular car. It does come with the 2 O-rings, which is very important. You'll need to replace those. So whenever you replace an AC compressor, you always want to make sure that there's the correct amount of oil inside the compressor. The way to do that is you drain the old compressor and check the level, and you drain the new compressor and then check the level, and you make sure you match what came out of the old compressor. In this case, no oil came out of the old or the new compressor. I'm going to go ahead and spin the wheel a few times before putting the compressor back in place. Next, I'm going to go ahead and install the 2 12mm nuts and bolts, and I will torque them to 18 pound-feet of torque. So this next step is very important. As you can see, I'm taking off the old O-rings on the AC lines, and I'm going to go ahead and install the new ones that come with the AC compressor. You'll always want to do this because if you don't, there is a good chance that it's going to leak in the future. Alright, so at this point I have both of the lines installed. I'm going to go ahead and torque the bolts to around 8 pound-feet of torque. Don't forget to connect the electrical plug and also secure the bracket that holds the wire harness. Next step is just a matter of sliding the plastic fan shroud assembly back into place. This one is probably going to be a little bit more difficult than taking it out. Go ahead and clip the fan assembly back into place. Then reconnect the top coolant hose and also the wiring harness that connects to the fans themselves. One of the last few things left to do is to reinstall the AC belt. Go ahead and rotate that tensioner clockwise again and slip the belt onto the AC compressor and to the alternator pulley. So remember how in the beginning we drained some of the coolants as we disconnected the top coolant hose? Well, now we're going to have to pour that back into the radiator. Go ahead and lift the cap up and pour that fluid back in. I'm also going to press that top coolant hose just to get some of the air bubbles out of there. So now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the air intake ducting. After this, I'm pretty much done. The next step would be to pull a vacuum on the AC system and to do the recharge. There are plenty of other YouTube videos that show you how to pull a vacuum on the system and how to recharge it. So I do want to mention one thing before I end the video, and that is whenever you replace an AC compressor that's failed, you always, well, not always, but it's always a good idea to replace the AC condenser along with the compressor. So I'll have a link in the video or in the description below on how to do that. I will see you guys next time.